Welcome to this new episode of the EO Conversations, where EO stands for Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Enabling Organizations. Today, we have the pleasure to have Antonio Boadas, the communication leader of GA Appliances, one of the big companies that have been acquired by Haier a few years back. Antonio, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Manuel. Thanks for having me here.
I think this is a great opportunity to look at the Rendanheyi from a US perspective, from culturally speaking, a different world, historically speaking, a different trajectory. Can you tell us a bit more about what GA was, what it became after the acquisition, and let's say some elements about the company and its business?
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity. So the GE Appliances was a unit within the big General Electric company, and was founded probably more than 100 years ago when the old GE was created, and Thomas Alva Edison came up with his inventions, and he was the ultimate entrepreneur. And as an inventor, he created his venture, and this was the beginning of what General Electric was. That company expanded and extended its arms to many businesses, including the appliances business, up until 2016, when it came to the point of divesting this business unit. There was an attempt before that in 2014, and a few others before that. The most famous was when the company was about to be sold to Electrolux. Didn't go through. The U.S. government considered that took a big deal for the company, for the country, sorry, and that wouldn't work from the monopoly and market perspective. So they ended up turning it down, and then in 2016 came Haier with what General Electric considered a very substantial offer, and decided to sell the business. So our long story from 100 years have been turned around in the last 4 years. And that is what is fascinating about this story. This is a very old company. It's a very large company. We employ close to 15,000 employees. We sell billions of dollars, and we are present in more than 50% of the homes in the US. So this is a massive company. And we turned this business around. And I wouldn't say it was Haier, it was Rendanheyi. So the acquisition that Haier made introduced us to a model that we were not aware of. We didn't know. In fact, we still don't know how to pronounce it. So we can say RDH. So it's regardless how you pronounce it and how you say it and how you write it, it transformed our lives. And this is not a religion. I think it rescued some of the essence of management that we kind of lost, and that they were buried under bureaucracy. This brought back passion, this brought back entrepreneurship, and this brought back the faith that we know how to do this. And let me give you a little more perspective on why I'm saying this. So when you are controlled by bureaucracy and you serve corporate, which was the GE Appliances case for many years, we're afraid of making mistakes because we're not serving our owner, our customers, and our users. We're serving someone in the corporate office who have never been here on the ground and is more concerned about Wall Street than the real street. So we were afraid of making mistakes. Therefore, we were not taking any risk. Therefore, we were not growing. So the fact that we were liberated after the acquisition, and that we were told that you now are in charge, which was a magical word. You need to deliver this. I won't tell you how. Just go ahead and do your best. This do your best was a clear signal that we were into something. We didn't know how to do our best because we were not trained to do our best. We were trying to do something that wouldn't create issues for corporate. Was good enough not to get in trouble. So we were like, okay, it is our time to go back and read some books it is our time to really discover how to run this business. And they offer us opportunity to learn more about Rendanheyi. Our CEO went to China. He spent close to a year before he was CEO, when he was CTO. And his first impression was like, that was chaos. He couldn't understand anything. He was asking for an org chart. He couldn't find it. He was asking for obviously reporting lines and a master plan. He couldn't find it. And then he understood, like, this is not chaotic. This is just like by design, it should be that way. And it's like an acquired flavor. So you need to really learn it and embrace it to really enjoy it. And this has been the journey as of today. It has been a fantastic, phenomenal journey, not well known yet, because we are more focused on delivering the business than telling stories about the business. But now we feel very, very proud of what we have accomplished. And I think it is time to share the story with the world and tell them it is possible.
Thank you so much for this overview and for highlighting some of the specific characteristics of the firm that I believe make this story interesting for many other incumbents, large organizations, leaders in the world. Maybe let's get one step back. I think it's clear that due to COVID-19, but also to this high level of risk, uncertainty, volatility, environmental pressure, let's say societal changes, challenges due to social media, the market as consumers we're living into is dramatically different from what it was even 5 or 10 years ago. And all this pressure at the global level, all this political instability is introducing new challenges to firms. How have this been playing out for GA's business? What kind of pressure you are feeling from the market, and how has this rippled into the human beings representing the firm so far?
Yeah, this is so cool. So we have been talking about the VUCA world for many, many years, and the company seems to be able to adapt to it and play around a little bit. But I think we got to the extreme right now, and to the point in which adaptation is no longer an option, because things came to the point in which they're changing so fast and so radically that incremental change is no longer enough to get to where we want. The COVID was a big lesson for us, and I think it was a big lesson for everybody. But we realized that we have to change our culture, and we were behaving differently. So it's this kind of thing that you don't know how much you have changed until you see yourself in the mirror. It's just okay. So during COVID, we needed to turn around our plant footprint to be able to operate, to offer social distancing, and to offer the space for operators to work, to offer the mask and the temperature. All these nightmare we all lived, and we have lived over the last 18 months. That happened, and in March last year, we were confronted with the reality that we need to run the plant. We didn't know how. So let me give you an example of two different approaches. Our approach was, okay, let's give all the plant managers the opportunity to decide what they feel is best for their plant. And we get them a week, you shut down the plant, and then you come back, not with a PowerPoint, you come back with a solution that you can operate next month. And we have 6 plants that we're collocating in our office here, and we had 6 different solutions. And they all went out, we tried them, we tested them, we executed them, and then we merged them and we found the best option. Meanwhile, we have here in our hometown, the company Ford Motors is here as well. It took them 3 months to build and create a toolkit that was really properly written with more than 100 pages on how to run the plants, which, by the way, some of the graphics were taken from our experiment. And then they executed that. So it took them 3 months to come up with a solution that was highly vetted, was highly bureaucratic, was top down, versus us that it took us a week of a good experimentation. What did we learn? Well, we learned that our model enabled us to do things differently. That we can move as fast as needed, but as thoughtful as required. We realized the power of independency and the power behind letting people be people, letting leaders be leaders, and finding out the better way. And because the new belief, and this is one of the key learnings after COVID, is like these big purpose statements that we're going to change the world are meaningless. So we came back to something less radical, more normal, which is like, let's describe how we work instead of dictating that big change that we want to make to the world. And we came up with 3 sentences. We come together because we realize that when we come together we are better. When we realized that there were many employees that couldn't make it to the plant, managers, myself, the CEO, and many leaders, we went to the assembly line and we worked for weeks, side by side with assembly workers. Why was that? Because we come together to make things happen. The second is we always look for a better way. It's a healthy discomfort with the current status quo. It's just like we feel that we can do things differently, and this is what we extracted from that situation, in which we invited plant managers to come up with solutions. There were always a better way. Let's figure out which better way is. And we always look at create possibilities. We already open new spaces. These 3 tenets were fundamental during COVID. We learned them from COVID. So when you ask me, so what have we learned and what are we changing? I think we're changing our approach to our business and our approach to management, because it is no longer like we know how to do it. We have done it for 120 years, which is probably the wrong answer. So it's like we don't know enough about what we haven't done yet, because we're exploring new spaces. We are looking forward to learning more about what you guys are doing, because we want to compare notes. It's more a humble approach to business, which opens opportunities for ecosystems, for collaboration, etc., which is our new phase in our business. So it has been one of the richest times in our lives. I know we don't like COVID. I know we don't like what is happening with COVID, life-wise, etc. From the business perspective, from the learning perspective, has been one of the richest periods in our lives.
And I heard it has been a record year, right? In terms of numbers.
The last year was a record year. Was the best year in our 100 and something years since our foundation. Wow. And there are many reasons. So yes, we did very well. And this is something a little bit counter. So while some of our competitors decided to lay off people to reduce costs, which is the immediate reaction when you don't know what is going to happen, we remain open. And we told our employees, this is the last resource. Okay, so we are going to keep you employed. We're going to be keeping this company running as long as we can. And we did it. And we not only did it, we hired more people and we expanded our operations and we invested in new lines. Why was that? Because we came together and we were able to find a better way to operate this plant. It was the record year and set us for more success. Now we continue being the fastest growing company in the US. And obviously the most successful transformation, and we're beating our competitors, but more importantly, we are getting to more users and owners than ever. So when we said that we're in 50% of the homes, that's an old number that I haven't been able to confirm, because right now, I believe we are in way more homes than in the past.
In your statements, you were saying that you have been experimenting, you have been giving space to the fund managers to to find their own solutions. You have been empowering your colleagues. Isn't it scary for, you know, a traditional historically top-down organization? Isn't it generating anarchy or too much, you know, variance? A manager would say, I don't want to have this kind of messiness in my business. I want to have coherence. So how to get coherence and freedom at the same time?
It is so uncomfortable for many people, because yes, so this notion that we haven't done that in the past is still present here, and I know better because I've been here for 40 years. It is still around. So I'm not gonna fool you like, yeah, everything is perfect. Well, that's part of the perfection. There is continuous tension between the past and the present, and that's how we're learning. When we say experiments, these are experiments. So we're not investing billions of dollars on experiments. So when you go small and nimble, you're able to pivot, learn, adapt, and then you can scale. So you don't go on the scale before you actually learn and compare notes. So we got right now we have probably 15, 16 micro enterprises, some of which are the results of previous micro enterprises that is split, and some others are just small experiments which we can't even call micro enterprises. They're like projects. The beauty of this is you don't need to invest. Our CEO would say, just you need to go cheap. You're going to go cheap, and don't spend much money, because if you fail, it won't be an issue. I wouldn't say you need to go cheap. I would say it differently. It's like you need to invest at the level of control, at the point in which you can still go back, correct course, reinvent, reinvest, and move forward. Culturally, it's challenging. It is really challenging, Manuela, because the idea of creating anarchy and chaos is prevalent. So yes, and many people are scared of that. Why are you doing that? And that is a question that I get all the time. Why? Well, the reason is because we can, or because that's the best way, or because I want to learn. There will be years, I would say years, until we get to the point in which 100% of the organization is like, yes, let's go and do it. There's still tension, and then I believe there will be tension for the years to come.
Let's get into some of the details now, because, you know, people listening to these conversations, I think start to know about the Rendanheyi, and you were mentioning micro enterprises. Can you tell us a bit more about how many micro enterprises, in which areas, and what are the levels of freedom and autonomy that the micro enterprises enjoy?
We started in 2017 with the creation of 4 micro enterprises. Actually, it was a transition from business unit to micro enterprises, and those were the most traditional and what we call the core businesses. In our case, in the appliances businesses, is the washers and dryers, the refrigerators, the cooking products, and the dishwashers. Big micro enterprises, and in the past, the core of our business. And that was a safe bet, because we know how to run this. The key difference was giving these leaders the ability to lead, and was giving them P&L responsibility, compensate them accordingly based on their business results, and allowing them to reallocate budget, and have given them the power for hiring and firing, which basically is staffing, and letting them define the plan and decide the course of their action. So that's the essence. So creating, like, turning business units into micro enterprises was straightforward, giving them some additional power. The beauty came right after, when we started discovering what we call the non-core business unit, which were now are all core. So the language is wrong, by the way, but it's the old language. So these new micro enterprises were in the spaces that we were barely opening and entering into, like air conditioning, so like adjacencies and new spaces. And now we are in totally new areas, like recreational vehicles, outfits, and so that is expanding. What is the difference between the first and the former and the latter? So the new micro enterprises, obviously, they have a P&L responsibility as well. They're focused on the consumer and the owners and everybody else. They have autonomy, they have authority, but also they have the duty of developing probably a new market, and the new approaches, the duty of joining, creating, or participating in a new ecosystem, which is a totally different space. So when you work on the cooking business and you sell ranges and ovens, that is a business that is based on the hardware. It's based on the equipment that you sell. When you are in a business of RV vehicles, or you're in the business of water heaters, the ask is, don't go and sell the appliance itself or the equipment itself. Just explore in which ecosystem you get into. And instead of competing, just like create new partnerships. And instead of looking for suppliers, look for partners. And this is how the company is expanding right now. So in that model, the beauty of Rendanheyi again, and let me go back to the theory for a second, Manuel, is, so the Rendanheyi is not a destination. There's no final place where you're gonna get to. Rendanheyi is a journey. And in this journey, you get reinvented every day. We never thought that we were going to be talking about scenarios and ecosystems in 2021 when we were in 2016. We never thought about it. Now we are talking about it, and now we're even talking about the DAOs, the decentralized autonomous organization, which is like the ultimate level of zero distance. It gets reinvented every single day. That's the beauty of this.
That's really fascinating again, and challenging probably to most, but definitely energizing about the possibilities, the immense possibilities that you are describing. Let me just stress this. You said, okay, it was the basics, but probably it wasn't so easy to have business units, core of the business, with profit and loss, independent profit and loss, the possibility to hire and fire, the possibility really to decide the strategy. So like independent companies, really. And that's the concept of a micro enterprise. How are you measuring results? Have the KPIs changed because of this, or at the end, you're measuring value as you were measuring it before this new organization design?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about the soft and hard KPIs, but there are hard and soft KPIs. And I'm sorry for the soft KPIs because they're very hard as well, but it's like core and non-core. So no one wants to be a soft KPI. The KPI, the business KPI remain, right? So yeah, so we have sales, and then we do have profits. So that remains. There are some cultural KPIs on organizational development that are really important. Okay, and it is talent development, it is retention, it is about the diversity, and it is diversity of thought, diversity of gender, and etc. So it's just like the whole diversity and inclusion space. And there's a third space of what we call the ecological revenue, which is how much revenue you are getting from the ecosystem approach. It's not the traditional revenue, which you go and sell and then get money back and you account for it. It is what is coming from the partnerships, what is coming from these new ventures. So that's a new line in the KPI. And I believe some of our KPIs are dated in general, right? And we are having invented and reinventing them yet. There's a Rendanheyi scorecard. We're still trying to learn more about it and study and apply it. We don't want to. And this is another important concept, that we don't apply Rendanheyi as a recipe and we just take and extract and do everything. So we take this as a guidance, because we approach Rendanheyi as a philosophy and not as anything else. So we translated it and we adapted it to the US and to our current reality, which is another lesson we got. So don't try to replicate what you see in other companies and what you see in other markets, because it might not work. You need just to like absorb it, learn it, and then probably execute it. But in any case, our KPIs are very traditional, but we are adding like a new layer of the what we call the ecological revenue, which is something totally new, and this organizational development KPIs for which all of our executives are accountable for. So our bonus and our compensation is tied to the diversity index or to the sustainability index as well.
You were mentioning an interesting point. You cannot copy it, especially in different markets, different countries. Let's be concrete. What's the difference between US and China? So what cannot be copied, even if you wanted, from the Rendanheyi between China and US? Can you give us specific examples when you said, no, this is not what we want to do, we respect what they do, but here we need something else?
We had a fantastic advantage by being part of the higher group during COVID, because COVID started in China, and they were the ones that were actually trying to reinvent themselves at the beginning. Like, wow, so how do they do that? And they were in higher, they were very strict with the temperature check and the mask, etc. And they help us in getting masks as well. So we learned a lot from China first. Then we learn a lot from Europe, from our colleagues in higher Europe, which are based, and the headquarters are in Italy, really close to one of the worst places in Italy, where COVID was really striking really hard. So that was the second lesson, and we understood that, wow, the issue in the plants was a serious one. When COVID came to the US, where we had this scalable learning from two pioneer markets where things were really, really wrong. What did we take from China, and what did we take for Europe? So we took from China the ability to continue running the business regardless. And this regardless meant taking all the measures and creating a very, very clear set of rules on how to do it, particularly the service part. So one thing that you can stop, and you can stop, is production. You can choose to stop it, but you can't stop service, because when your refrigerator breaks in the middle of the pandemic, it's a crisis. When you can't cook in the middle of the pandemic and you are trapped in your home, it's a crisis. So we needed to serve that. And we understood it from China day one. You can't not stop service and repair. So we took all the learning from them and we applied it. And then when we got to Europe, we learned about the plants. How do we do the thing with the plants? And we just did it as well as they did it. And we kept the plants running. The addition that something that I don't know how China did it, probably they did it very centralized and Europe did it very centralized, was this approach of not mandating how we were going to run each plant. So this approach of finding the better way based on what works for you in your particular plant, in your particular micro enterprise, was not centralized, was totally decentralized. I believe in China and in Europe was more centralized. So we didn't follow their guidance. And the other thing that we did was we sent people home immediately, 100% of the organization immediately. In China was mandated by the government. In Italy was mandated by the government. In the US was not mandated by the government at the beginning. So we did it first based on the learnings we got from them. So it's just like we apply certain learnings, and I guess I gave you some examples on COVID. There are certain things in the business and day-to-day business that we don't do that China does or Europe does, and we don't do. But I can go to any specific if you give me a
one example I heard Kevin Nolan mentioning is Salesforce, right? In China, I had one solution, but you went another way. Is that something correct? So
I don't remember that one.
Salespeople, are they part of the migrant enterprises, or are they a separated team?
Oh, I mean, I know what you mean. Yeah. The structure-wise, yes, there are several differences, and I apologize. I went to the COVID example. The structure-wise, we kept some scalable units, scalable organizations, what we call the platform, and China calls it platform, not embedded into the micro enterprise. So you have in the Chinese micro enterprises, you have marketing, you have sales, and sometimes you have finance and you have HR embedded in each micro enterprise. Means that if you could be 100% autonomous. So if we want to divest you tomorrow, we can do it because you are an autonomous organization. Our approach is different. So our approach is the micro enterprise is really focused on running that business. We support them through services, and those services are provided by these big platforms. So we provide them with the legal services, with HR services, with the finance services, with the sales services, with the marketing services, with the communication services and the IT services. And so that is the approach. So how we call it is, so yeah, you could be in the micro enterprise, you can be like a very entrepreneurial business person, but you're going to be kind of cheating because you don't need to take care of those fundamentals of the business. You're going to be focusing on your product and your product line, but we'll take care of the rest. Yeah, that's a key difference.
And in IR, this is called shared service platforms for those that have been learning a bit about the language. But how does it work? Do you have, are you tracking value exchange? So I'm buying a service from HR, from IT, or I'm just getting it and I don't need to keep track of how many hours, let's say how many effort is flowing?
Yeah, it's interesting. So you don't pay for them, but you approve my budget, which is on a way paying for it. So every year I go and in my case, I'm a platform and I offer the communications and the brand communications and the power relation services. So and also the business transformation services. So every year I go and in front of all the micro enterprise leaders and I tell them how much I need to run and to support all of them as in a scale based. And they say yes or no, or cut here and cut over there. So because I serve them, I approve my budget on a way they're paying me. And it's just like I'm presenting the bill ahead of time once a year. And then they decide if my retainer is good enough. Will they have the opportunity to get my services from an external firm? In theory, yes, but we don't have extensive experience on that one. So we have experience on distribution, for example. Because we just re-enter the small appliances business. The small appliances business requires a different distribution system. They are more online based. You ship only one coffee maker instead of one container of refrigerators. So it's the supply chain is totally different. So our system was not set up for that. So they went out and they retained their own system because we couldn't offer it. So that's one experiment. But I don't think we're ready to embrace that idea of I don't want my HR support, I'm going to hire a new one through a consultant. It could happen, but we haven't done it.
You are still safe for a bit. Just kidding.
Yeah, no, it's a job security.
Another peculiar idea, I would say unique idea that China pioneered is using contracts, dynamic contracts, what is called the ecosystem communities, to micro communities, to bring units, to bring micro enterprises together. So in essence, collaboration. Are you using some of these? Are teams working together in a spontaneous way or in a formalized, let's say, contractualized way?
Both. We have the hub teams, and also we have more formal teams that get together and on the reform of a contract. And this is a very interesting construct that I think we haven't explained well to ourselves, because it's what we used to have, and we also call it charters. And when people got together around one idea and they just deliver, and you are supposed to deliver. The difference, how flat is that organization? So we're not creating a new organization around a contract. and there is not a real boss. It's just a group of individuals whose responsibility is to deliver certain pieces and parts of a project for a greater good. That is what is different here, and we haven't got to the point of the signed contract. We have the project establishment, and people know what they need to deliver, and they are rewarded and they're compensated by what they deliver. Do we have this? And in China, I have seen it, but I'm not sure how it works. So they have these daily updates on how the contract is evolving, and how you guys are delivering versus what you're expected. So it's like a live scorecard and with balance and checks and balances everywhere. We don't have that infrastructure in place, but we kept the former infrastructure, which is okay. We'll talk, and we'll talk, and we get together and we check our status quo, and then we see how we are delivering. So we do have both. So we have these informal groups, and we have the more formalized group. The beauty of in both cases is that we haven't recreated like bureaucratic structures with the boss and the assistant. So we don't have that. They're totally flat.
We're talking a lot about hierarchies and bosses. Can you tell me what is happening within a migrant enterprise? Is there any hierarchy there? Is it totally flat? Is the migrant enterprise leader a bit more responsible, for what happens? And how can you get a new migrant enterprise started in GA? Is it just somebody waking up one morning and saying, I want to do a migrant enterprise, or something different?
I love the richness of your question. So yes, there's a difference between hierarchies and bureaucracy. So there is hierarchy in the micro enterprises. There is a boss, which is the micro enterprise leader. And he has a team, and there are people reporting into people. Could this evolve? Yes, it will evolve. It is evolving. We're not breaking down the organization and getting rid of levels yet, but we would love to get to the point in which we can call our organization truly organic organization, where people offer their value regardless the level. In fact, there shouldn't be levels. So we are gonna get there. Meanwhile, yes, we have a boss and we have people reporting to our boss. What is different is how decentralized decision making is. So the micro enterprise leader is responsible for the P&L. That doesn't mean that he approves every single step that is taken in his or her micro enterprise. The level of delegation is so unseen in this business unit's history, because regardless of your level, you are accountable and responsible for delivering your specific piece of work. And the third piece is people tend to become specialized in their business unit. So they tend to grow in that business unit. So they learn more about the different jobs in the business units. So you create a sense of community in that organization that at the end, what we see from the outside as hierarchy, it becomes like a very organic workflow because people are so deeply connected. So that is how they work. Yes, there was one individual who came once, an engineer who was passionate about RVs or recreational vehicles, like 3 or 4 years ago, and he was working in the refrigeration business. And he said, like, you know what? I have an RV. My air conditioning sucks. I think we should be in that business. The company was not set up for that. And he said, like, okay, just go ahead and tell us what would it take and whether it works or not. He went with a couple of his friends within the company. They experimented, and they came up with the idea and the solution and the technical solution. And here is with a right humidifier, etc. This became like a contract, like an EMC at the beginning. And then there was another individual who said, like, what if, in addition to the air conditioning, we also outfit the RVs with a kitchen, with a blah, 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 everything else. That became like the genesis of a new micro enterprise. It is not a micro enterprise yet because there's no P&L yet. So there is no profit or losses yet. We're just starting, but it's and it's totally flat. There is no boss there. That's a very interesting model, because we haven't appointed, no one has appointed anyone. No one has been self-appointed as the leader of that. They're just organically growing and deciding who leads and who doesn't.
And what about investments? So, there are two types of platforms, industry platforms and shared services platform. Industry platforms are a way to open up strategy and to put money on the table where the company believes there is value to create. Have you got anything like that? So if I have a new idea for an EMC or for a migrant enterprise, will I get some investments from GA? Is there any possibility to be helped in launching a new business?
Yeah, it's 100% possible. So the capital investments are part of the scale work. Okay, so it's yes. So the company as a whole, they centralize, they bring all the resources, and then we have the capital investment strategy that is discussing between the different micro enterprises and what we call the central corporate team, which will be the CFO and the CEO and the different officers. They're not approved, it's approved. They come to a conclusion as a whole, as a combination of micro enterprises, what makes more sense for the greater good. Obviously, that tension is very interesting because yes, you have a business that are fighting for resources, and you are competing against another business which is fighting for the same resources. So that tension is very healthy, but it's not easy. Right? That's part of the negotiation, the continuous negotiation within this environment. That if you come up with a new idea and you want to be funded, there's a difference between China and the US in that respect. If you are in China, you can come up with that idea, you pitch that idea, and you co-own the idea because you put some money as well. So the company will act as a venture capital. So the company will give you some funds and probably some resources, and you put something on the table. And eventually, if the idea works, the company might buy you up, or will kill it and pull the resources out. So it depends. We're not there yet. So we invest on the project a little money, but the employee or the entrepreneur doesn't need to invest. So it's a more time investment and dedication. There are a few ideas. So we are creating, and we're about to launch right now, one indoor herbs grower. So it's like a refrigerator, but you grow herbs inside. And that came from something we call a Shark Tank. Bunch of inventors came together, and that's an idea. They developed it and they built it, and the company is about to start selling it. There's another idea, which is a mushroom grower. Many people are fascinated by growing their own mushrooms at home. So we know how to manage humidity and water, and it includes space. So that's kind of the principle of a refrigerator. So we created that thing. We're about to start to sell it. It's an experiment as well. That's an idea an employee came up and the company helped them fund it.
It sounds like really a great environment, full of diversity, full of energy, full of initiative. Is there also pressure coming with it? What is the expectation the company has on employees? Is it you must be an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, let's say, as in China, this is what we see, or at the end you are invited to do that, but you can still be a team member, and that will be perfect as well.
Yeah, this is not a place where everybody's crazy and just like inventing things like every single day. You'll see very normal people like myself walking in. Some are more passionate than others, and a little bit about myself. So I'm a communicator by trade. I was a journalist. I'm originally from Venezuela. And so I was a reporter in Venezuela. I came to the corporate world because I was fascinated by corporate communications and public affairs. But then when I saw this transformation, when I saw that General Electric was selling its appliances business to a Chinese company in the US, I was like intrigued, like, how would this work? And it's like, I'm at the point of experimenting as well. I'm going to learn because one of my personal passions is organizational development and transformation. So I'm an entrepreneur in the transformation space. And I love it. And I came here, and to me, it was not a job, it was my personal social experiment, and that my opportunity to learn and being part of the transformation. That this is where the passion comes from. When you come and walk in this building, you will see many people who share my passion because they love what they see and they love what they're doing. You also see people who are not entrepreneurs, but they love doing what they do, not because they're inventing. It just simply because they can execute what they like. The concept we use here is we're trying to strike the right balance between problem lovers and problem solvers. I'm a problem lover. So you ask me a question and I'll find the problem I'm trying to address with your question. I won't answer the question. A problem solver goes straight to the answer. And these are fantastic individuals for spaces like product supply, people that really looking for an issue for them to jump and solve it. That is the combination. This is a very vibrant workplace. I love what I see. We turned around the culture and the spirit of this company in 2018 or 17. We did our first employee survey, and what employees said is like, yeah, it's okay. It's kind of a fine place, and I'm not encouraged to make decisions, and I kind of don't like my boss. But anyway, I'll say here, we just did the survey a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, and the results were different. What people say, like, I just love being here. I really enjoy it. And yeah, my boss is still my boss, but I kind of like him or like her. I feel empowered, and I love what I see. What have changed? I would say, like, probably we gave ourselves permission to learn more about ourselves and what's happening in the company. So time helps. But the second were the results. I bet you that if our results were not so good, we wouldn't have this cultural change. People would say, like, we failed, and we failed again because Rendanheyi didn't do anything for us. But honestly, between Rendanheyi, the business momentum, and our people's talent, we were able to deliver the best years of our history. And that helps a lot.
Let me ask you a final question for all those companies that are literally frightened from what they are seeing happening in hire. And I recently got one question from a journalist asking, what's the first feedback you get? And the first feedback when I talk about running is, you're crazy. You must be crazy. This is not possible. It's not for us. It will never work for us. But it worked for you. It worked in the US. It worked in a slightly different environment. So what's your suggestion to those companies, maybe leaders, incumbents, large successful organizations that want to stay successful, but that are slow to change, are bureaucratic, as you said, so have space for doing a bit of what you have done in terms of empowering people, increasing entrepreneurship, increasing the resonance with the market and customers. What should they do, and what they shouldn't do, let's say, when looking at higher GA, higher Europe, higher China?
The first thing is, it is possible. This is not the kind of models that only a couple of companies can embrace because they have some specific characteristics. So this Rendanheyi has worked, and it's proven to work in different environments, different cultural environments, and different markets, and different level of company maturity. What is, to me, what is critical here is not to take Rendanheyi as a recipe, take it more as a philosophy, and learn more about the principles versus the mechanics. So we get like fascinated by the words on EMC or contract or ecosystems, and it can be very confusing. So what Rendanheyi is about at the end of the story is something that we all embrace as business people, which is, we say that consumer is boss, even though sometimes we don't do it and we don't execute it that way, we don't approach it. But who pays for our work? Is the value we create the one that generates the revenue? So therefore, yes, we're rewarded by the consumers every day, because they buy our services. Therefore, we need to serve them. We are striking and aiming to get zero distance to our consumers and audience and users, simply because the closer you are, the better you understand it, and the better the system will be, the support you offer will be. Therefore, you're going to be adding and creating more value. We all love our employees, and we all say, like, yes, employees first, our safety first, and we develop our talent, and our company is the best because of our people. Okay, let's be honest. And let's be honest with that and turn our people into people and respect them as people. I always say, and I don't know if this anecdote works, but we torture people when we're hiring them, and we take them through 4 or 5 interviews, and we ask them about everything. And then as soon as they come and we give them the badge to enter the door, they become a number. They become a person that is behind a cubicle doing numbers and pushing papers. Let them unleash them, okay? Let them be who they are. Then promote curiosity. It's not horrible. It's just like scalable learning. Instead of having this training that are basically modeling people after an old-fashioned managerial style, that all managers in this company should look the same, and you are expecting always the same from them, making your workforce very predictable and uniform. Just create some scalable learning. Have people to teach each other about what they know. Create those very organic systems. If you embrace and learn this, you're going to be doing Rendanheyi. So the problem is that the name is really foreign, but the concepts are not. And the other thing is, every country is different. And you asked me a couple of times, like, what is different between China and the US and Europe? Just many things. And are we betraying our chairman? Are we betraying Rendanheyi? No, quite the opposite. I think we're expanding what Rendanheyi could be. And we are learning ourselves, and we're teaching others that it is possible. The question that I still have, and I know we're running out of time, but it's a fundamental question that I haven't been able to answer, and you as an expert will help me answering this. Rendanheyi seems to be dependent, like many other business models, should be dependent of a very strong central leadership. Because Rendanheyi is not something that comes and flourishes from the ground up and like, yes, let's embrace Rendanheyi. Seems to come from a leader who understands this, what we talked about, and kind of force its way into the organization to infuse that change. That is fine until it is not, because when this leader moves on or disappears from the space, probably the company will go back to its old ways or not. I don't know. So how much this model depends on strong leadership, and what would it take for us to keep this change moving on and permeate the organization?
It's nice because you're asking me now. We have shifted the roles, but I really like the question. I think this is a crucial point since many leading organizations, many pioneers into self-management and self-governance haven't solved this yet. So I can think about many examples of companies in which, a very enlightened, proactive, charismatic leader has been responsible for getting this transformation for many years. So this question of when the leader is going, what is going to happen, I think is key. In my experience, there are 2 phases. When you start from a hierarchical company, you need a charismatic leader. Actually, you need more than one, quite always, to accept the hierarchy and hijack the hierarchy. So you need to act within the hierarchy to demonstrate something else is possible and how. Most companies still stop here. So they never reach the second phase in which you distribute that natural leadership at every level of the organization. To me, that's what the Rendanheyi is. Every migrant enterprise owner, actually every individual is a leader, contextually speaking. And you can embed, you can infuse this into the organization design. So there are mechanisms in boundaryless. We use sociocracy Holacracy is very similar, through which you can distribute also governance decisions, the big design decisions that usually are attributed to the CEO or the big guys in the board. Actually, you can distribute also these next level questions about not work, but how work gets done. I think when you get at that level, this can become sustainable because it's the organization owning the organization and changing the organization. That's a different level though. You need, first of all, to get it going, and then to distribute not just operational power, but also policy power. So it's about designing the organization. But if anybody is equipped to go there, I think you are one of the best examples. What I heard today was really lots of passion, lots of good examples of what can be done, and yes, the belief that it can be done. I think this has to be spread, this has to be communicated, because we need more of these, regardless of the details of the naming, because human beings want to express themselves, want to have impact, and organizations lately want to have impact. And I see everything you have described, not just as a great example of business results for sure, and it's good, but also a great example of how to make work meaningful. And I think we need more of that, not just in the US, but also in Europe, but also in Asia. So thank you so much for this conversation. I know there is probably many more details to absorb, but I'm really happy for this, because again, I believe this could be helpful for other organizations to go beyond excuses and trying to do stuff and to experiment, as you said, and maybe share back to us what they are learning, because we believe this is a big learning community. Nobody has the answer here, but we are learning together, and your experience, let's say, is very fruitful and insightful for many companies. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, and please, let's stay in touch.
Absolutely. I so enjoyed this conversation, and I'll keep you posted on what we learn and what we're experimenting, and what is next for us.
I'm really curious to see what your app next. I think there will be some more lessons and experiments to talk about. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manuel.
What are the impact and relevance of culture when it comes to implementing ideas from the Rendanheyi? No other company is as well qualified as General Electric's appliances to help us address this area. Antonio Boadas shares a glimpse into what a real Rendanheyi transformation could look like when the target organization has access to all the required knowledge, but without being based in China, being led by Chairman Zhang Ruimin, or having gone through the same trajectory air traveled for decades. Boundaryless, we believe there are several takeaways to be gained from this conversation. The first one is that while not possible overnight, structural changes can actually happen at a reasonable speed in multiple parts of the business by delivering results, in this case for GE appliances that represent a record in over 100 years. So good business remains the first and potentially more compelling driver towards the Rendanheyi. The biggest hurdle is instead cultural barriers, both for management's fear of losing control and going into anarchy, and the lack of references employees have when asked to act like entrepreneurs. Training, experimentation, psychological safety, and role modeling all increase the opportunity to explore, validate, and scale ideas that may initially seem too far from what companies such as GE Appliances have been thinking about for so long. Copying the Rendanheyi is not feasible or recommended, even in a company owned by Haier, Being aware of the specific conditions and limitations is the first step for picking the most appropriate practices and localizing them around national legislation, regional preferences, people, and business priorities. GE Appliances launched entrepreneurial migrant enterprises supported by shared service platforms, but through details that vary from China in terms of the level of freedom, the level of centralization, the formalization of dynamics, such as industry platforms or EMCs. So Rendanheyi must be interpreted more as a set of principles and a philosophy than a source of answers for any other organization in the world. Once the founding concepts become clear, the firm should take responsibility for continuously experimenting to find the best solutions for its specific environment and needs. And lastly, leadership and the role of the leader take on an entirely new meaning in aggressively distributed organizational models. Transforming every individual into a CEO might well be the most far-reaching consequence of the Rendanheyi, one for long recommended by Chairman Jiang Zemin, and the one able to foster the realization of a regal league more than any organizational hack. We'll keep following the development of GE Appliances, learning from them, and sharing the resulting insights for other companies to find the courage and to identify the round direction to become more entrepreneurial and ecosystemic.